Welcome back to another FPL video. This time I had a Gameweek 26, my team selection. The wildcard is a possibility, whether in Gameweek 26 or 27, but I also have an avenue of taking just a few hits and navigating all these blanks and doubles coming up very soon. So let me know your thoughts in terms of whether you're wildcarding or just using free transfers / hits. I'd be very interested to see the dichotomy and the difference between those two strategies. But thank you very much for watching this video. If you end up enjoying it, you know what to do. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new to show your support. But let's get straight into this video talking about how I did in Gameweek 25 before moving on to my transfer plans for Gameweek 26. That's now 3 blanks in a row for my goalkeeper Kepa Arrizabalaga, and Chelsea have just been struggling. The big news now is that Thiago Silva will be out for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, and that will be a huge blow for Chelsea, who also didn't have Badiashile in the starting 11 in that London derby against Spurs, which was quite shocking to say the least. And as soon as I saw that lineup, the little confidence I had in Chelsea, let's say, was dissipated very quickly, and I didn't expect them to get anything from that game, despite their really strong record against Tottenham in general over the years. But Kepa Arrizabalaga is still a great goalkeeper to have. He doesn't blank in 28, has a double in 29, but with Raya also not blanking now in Gameweek 28, which we've discussed in my recent videos as well, the impact of the FA Cup results this week on blank Gameweek 28 and 32, well, quite frankly, I think Raya is definitely the goalkeeper to go to right now. So if you're wildcarding, I'd definitely go for that Spaniard instead of Kepa. It has been a pain owning Arsenal defenders such as Ben White in recent weeks, but he produced a massive haul, a 13-pointer, 7 points in the first game against Leicester and 6 against Everton. You can't ask for too much more. Arsenal may be a bit fortunate not to concede against Everton, especially towards the end, but over the course of the game they dominated. They could have scored 6 or 7, and Ben White was actually very shaky in the first half, giving the ball away, and since the Man United match, I would say, he's been making a lot of sloppy passes, which at the beginning of the season he just wasn't doing. So something has happened with Ben White. He definitely improved in the second half, and overall he was pretty solid, but his passing has been a bit lackluster and a bit kind of careless in a way, but still enough to get a 13-pointer in FPL. The same can't be said for Tarkowski, who got a yellow card against Arsenal, maybe a bit fortunate as well, some very dirty challenges in that game, and ultimately, at least I jinxed him. I'm going to look at the positives there. At least I jinxed him for that second game, but it looks like a really awful transfer to get rid of Shaw for Tarkowski, and ultimately you probably want Shaw back in. The only positive about getting Tarkowski is that he features in Gameweek 28 against an off-form Chelsea, but will Tarkowski and Everton keep a clean sheet there? I honestly don't think so, despite Chelsea's struggles. But Tarkowski still, I got him in, it didn't pay off. That was the worst transfer I made. I think the other ones were quite unlucky on my behalf, and let's not even go into the next defender, but we have to. It's Andrew Robertson with a 5-pointer. He was on 8 or 9 points at the end of the first game of the double game week, but then gets a yellow card, and you could say maybe it was an undeserved yellow card. It was a bit harsh, but why was Robertson lunging in like that? I mean, there's so many things you could say about that action, but that kind of sums up my game week. There's a few things that almost went my way and would have given me a green arrow, but it just ended up not happening, and Robertson was benched in the second game, which was the biggest blow of them all. So I had Darwin for the second game, but not Robertson, but I had Robertson for the first one and not Darwin Núñez. So there you go. Sometimes these weeks happen. I wanted Trent, and even though I thought Robertson could outperform him, and he almost did in the first game, it's just Trent Alexander-Arnold I couldn't afford, quite frankly, and Robertson was the only defender apart from maybe Van Dijk that I could have gone to, and Van Dijk obviously scored in the second game, got maximum bonus in the first, and ultimately going for Van Dijk would have ultimately changed my week in such a big way. I never expected such a huge point swing between someone like Virgil van Dijk and Robertson, who I would still class as the better FPL option, but that's how FPL can be sometimes, and you have to take it on the chin. The next defender is just a blanker. I didn't fill my team with 11, so Trippier was here, and the same goes for the entire bench, which includes Rashford, who also blanked in Gameweek 25. So I had 10 men, and apart from Ben White, my backline was very disappointing this week. What kind of saved my week in the end was my midfield three of Bukayo Saka, who got a 15-pointer. He didn't get any returns in the first game against Leicester, and I think on another day he could have. Obviously, he scored a goal, and there are some debates about whether Martinelli was offside in the build-up. They didn't show a replay with the lines added on, and Saka also should have had a penalty, which he won, and he would have taken surely as well against Leicester. Didn't happen, but it all did in the second match. I don't think it was his best performance overall, but still did enough to get a goal and an assist, a crucial goal, by the way, to put Arsenal 1-0 ahead when they were struggling in the opening portion of that game against Everton, who were sitting back and being very resolute defensively. But that Saka goal just kind of opened the floodgates, and a very impressive performance by him as well. So very happy with Saka. And the same goes for my other two midfielders. Odegaard with an 11-pointer. He scored towards the end of that match. He has a great record against Everton. That's 3 goals in 4 games against them. The only poor performance really was at Goodison Park only last month, but every other game he's been very integral and important against Everton, scoring some crucial goals such as the one yesterday as well. And next up is Mohamed Salah, who scored eventually, but I'm still very frustrated in the grand scheme of things because his returns don't really help me too much. I didn't captain Salah this week, so what I ultimately wanted was for Robertson and Darwin Núñez to get the returns for me, and it just didn't really happen, especially in the second game. But still, it's something, I can't complain too much. Andres Pereira, though, whenever I need him, whenever he's in my starting 11, he gets these 1 or 2 pointers, and when he's on my bench, he just loves to get these returns. I think a lot of us can relate to that situation, so very frustrating to see him get a 1-pointer. I was, at least expecting a 2 or 3 pointer, and that's it. But there you go. At least the rest of my midfield did a job, and also Ben White. And let's now go into the forward line, and of course, I was one of those that sold Harry Kane this week to fund the moves for Salah and Robertson. Owning Darwin Núñez is a pain that is just most indescribable, and I actually had him once and he did really well for me early in the season. It was one of my best transfers, selling Callum Wilson to Darwin Núñez just before the World Cup, but getting him in this week, it was purely just to fund Salah, and ultimately it has paid off. But Darwin Núñez had a goal chalked off by VAR, a bit contentious. There was a foul in the build-up by Diogo Jota, and that would have actually transformed my week. I would have actually gained 30,000 places from my current position if Darwin Núñez's goal had stood. He was on for 9 points overall, maximum bonus. It just wasn't meant to be, and Darwin Núñez is a good player. I think he has a lot of talent and potential, but quite frankly in FPL, he is so frustrating to own. He's been in great form recently, and I think he could do well over the next few weeks, but ultimately, there are still 3 or 4 forwards you could go to, like Harry Kane, who doesn't blank now in Gameweek 28, Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins, and Erling Haaland. There just isn't space for Darwin Núñez, and he really was just to attack this double game week. He's got some good fixtures coming up as well, and another double in 29, but I'm prepared to sell him already. And it is frustrating because on another day, he maybe would have gotten those returns there against Wolves. And he had a good performance overall. He was probably Liverpool's best attacker on the night, one of their best players as well. But it is what it is. And Darwin, we all know what goes on with him. And unfortunately, he's just not really made up for FPL at the moment. Haaland, though, is. And I didn't want him to return. Anything that he did actually gave me a red arrow. And despite owning him, my rank went down by 2,000 places as a result of Erling Haaland because of his effective ownership, which was still high, despite it being a double game week. A lot of permanent captaincy options on Haaland. But in the end, those that captain Saka, Odegaard, Salah, maybe Martinelli as well, they all triumphed over Erling Haaland. Not by much, but still just about enough. And that double game week paid off in the end. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough to save me from a red arrow. I believe that's now 4 red arrows on the trot, but I did captain Saka at least. I've got to look at the positives. I had most of the key assets this week. 2 Arsenal midfielders, Mohamed Salah. I had an Arsenal defender as well, and a Liverpool one. Unfortunately, it was the worst one of them all in Robertson. Even Tsimikas would have been a better choice for me. He got the assist in the end for Salah in the second game. So overall, very frustrating because a few things like Darwin Núñez's goal was chalked off. That changed my week. And also Robertson not starting the second game and getting yellow card at the end of the first one against Crystal Palace to lose all bonus points as well. But there you go. That's how FPL can be sometimes. 84 points overall, but with a -8 hit taken into account, that's 76. And I've now gone down to around 136,000 in the world. So these red arrows aren't that big, but I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was around 77,000. So I've almost pretty much doubled my rank, which is not what I want to do. And I think I can still push into the top 50k and beyond, which is my target for the rest of the season, considering where I was only a couple of months ago. But still, a lot of work needs to be done. I need to get my chip strategy right. I've got some good ideas, some different ones as well that I've been talking about. Even a wildcard in 26 or 27 is on the cards, but I think I can get to a really optimal squad for all the blanks and doubles coming up by just taking a hit, maybe even 2, but it wouldn't be too much, and I can match most wildcarders out there. So let me know your thoughts on the team selection coming up and what you're going to do as well. Let's now jump straight into the Gameweek 26 team selection, my transfer plans for not only this game week, but also the blanks and doubles to come. As those of you that have seen my wildcard video know, if I were to wildcard, it would be Raya in goal. But without it, it would be Kepa Arrizabalaga coming in. Against Leeds at home, it's a good fixture, but I'm still concerned with the absence of Thiago Silva. And if Badiashile doesn't start either, I would fear the worst for Chelsea. And they could even concede and lose the game. They also lost to Southampton in the last home match. And I'm not expecting many things from Chelsea assets, including Kepa, who is the best of a bad bunch right now. He's still pretty good in the grand scheme of things. He's got a lot of points per 90, still the best amongst goalkeepers so far this season, but of course he does have a smaller sample size. He is still a great choice, of course, but the likes of Raya I think tick so many boxes. So does Kepa, to be fair, but Raya also has that double in 27 over Kepa and also getting more clean sheets at this moment in time because Brentford are a better team right now. So Kepa's in goal reluctantly at the moment, but things could definitely change if I were to wildcard. My defense has been very inconsistent in recent weeks, and I'm not expecting that to change too much in Gameweek 26, but one defender I'm expecting something from is Ben White, one of the heroes from Gameweek 25, one of the few, I would also add, with 2 consecutive clean sheets against Leicester and Everton. Arsenal haven't kept too many clean sheets at home, but they face Bournemouth up next, and also they could build on that Everton performance where they controlled the game for the vast majority, and they also kept that clean sheet, and that's going to be very important from now until the end of the season. How many clean sheets can Arsenal get? One more, and they match Newcastle for the most clean sheets so far this season, despite having played more games as well, at least if you compare Ramsdale and Nick Pope. But the next defender is going to be Kieran Trippier. On a wildcard, I'd actually bench him facing Man City away, but he still has the attacking potential, the bonus points if Newcastle were to do anything as well. They drew 3-3 last time. It was a great match. Trippier scored a free kick in that game, and he's not really one for goals. The main thing with him is assists, bonus points, and clean sheets, and quite frankly, I probably don't see any of them happening, but Trippier is always capable of it. And Newcastle have been a bit underwhelming recently in all competitions, but I'd still expect them to kick on and also bounce back eventually, but probably from Gameweek 27 onwards rather than this game against Man City. The last defender is Tarkowski. Hopefully he can give me one return before I ultimately sell him, but if I weren't to wildcard, if I don't use it, then I think Tarkowski will stay in my team for the next few game weeks, featuring Gameweek 28, give me those 1 or 2 pointers maybe, and then after that it will be adieu. But there you go. It's not really a great defense, to be quite frank. Then again, most of the defenders I would like Estupinian, is an injured out facing West Ham at home, who have been fairly decent in the last game or two, and you've also got Ben Mee facing Fulham, who have also been very in form recently, and I wouldn't necessarily expect a clean sheet either. So there might not be that many clean sheets in general this week, but I certainly won't have a great chance with this back line. I'm probably expecting my midfield to save me once again, but Bukayo Saka is a great captaincy contender at home to Bournemouth. He's been in terrific form recently, and even when he has a bit of an underwhelming performance or isn't at his absolute best, he can still score or assist. He's got penalties in his back pocket. He's got so many different things going for him. He's got 10 goals now in the Premier League and 9 assists, as Arsenal became the first team in the Premier League this season to have 2 players register 10 goals or more, with Martinelli being the other one. And he's the informed Arsenal player right now. He's got 11 goals over the course of the season, 4 goals in his last 3 Premier League matches, and he's also one of the highest scorers overall in the Premier League. So Martinelli owners, just enjoy his points. He's going to keep on doing well, it looks like. I talked about him in my transfer tips video as well. I still prefer Saka and Odegaard, so I'm going to be stubborn with that, but honestly, there's not much to separate Odegaard and Martinelli right now, which I also discussed before the Everton game as well. But Odegaard did very well the last time Arsenal faced Bournemouth. They took the lead, I think 2-0 up in 10 minutes or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again, of course. Bournemouth will probably be a bit more resolute defensively this time round and cause a bit more problems, but Odegaard could be the key to unlocking them, and I think he could be the highest scoring Arsenal midfielder and player this week. So keep an eye out on Odegaard, and if you have him, don't sell him this week. Even for Martinelli or Saka, who have been more in form in FPL, I wouldn't sell Odegaard this week, that's for sure. The other 2 midfielders include Salah, who faces Man United. That's going to be a huge game as well for the title race and also for the top 4 race, and obviously so much tension between these 2 clubs as well. Liverpool have been a bit on and off, but you have to say over the last 3 or 4 games they've been pretty decent, at least in the domestic competitions, and they also went 2-0 up against Real Madrid, but their defence is definitely vulnerable. But with some key players back now for Liverpool, like Konate, you've also got Jota coming in as well. You've got a bit more depth and quality suddenly in some key positions. The midfield would still be the big concern, but Salah did enough to get a double-digit return in Gameweek 25, and he's still one of the best premium premiums for the next 5 game weeks. I still put Harry Kane maybe slightly above him, especially with no blanking game week 28 now, but Salah has the double in 29, and if you have him, I would still keep Salah, as we've also discussed in the transfer tips video yesterday. The last midfielder is going to be the inform Marcus Rashford. He's been fantastic recently, and whenever he doesn't score, it seems like a shock at this moment in time. Even when he came off the bench against West Ham in the FA Cup as Man United mounted a comeback, to see Rashford not score was a surprise. He came very close as well, and I would have no concerns about him, despite blanking in 28 and a possible blanking game week 32, whatever it may be. I will still keep Marcus Rashford, who for me is the best midfielder in the game right now. You've got a few competitors in Saka and Odegaard, but I think Rashford is definitely clear at this moment in time in FPL. And this is a very solid midfield four without using the wild card, of course. No doublers in 27 just yet, but ultimately, apart from Matoma, I'm not really that interested in the Brighton, Brentford, Crystal Palace, or Southampton midfielders, especially in the long term. There's a lot of talk right now surrounding Ivan Toney and all the leaks about him having an investigation, you know, the developments in that case with the FA, and there's a lot of noise going on, and let's wait and see what the end result is. But my guess would be that we'd still be a few weeks or months away from a hearing, and then you have to wait a bit more for the suspension or for the punishment to be dished out. So Ivan Toney should be clear in the meantime, but you just never know. Maybe by the time we get to the next international break, Ivan Toney could already be serving a suspension. We just don't know yet, but don't let that put you off Ivan Toney right now, whether it's to buy him. I definitely wouldn't sell him right now with the fixtures coming up and the doubles in 27 and 29. Until we have something confirmed, I think Ivan Toney is safe for the time being and one of the best forwards to buy over the next 4 or 5 game weeks. After that, then I think I'd be very open to selling him and going to Harry Kane, for example, who's the best forward in the game apart from Erling Haaland. So Ivan Toney is still worth it. It's a bit of a difficult fixture against Fulham at home, to be quite frank, but I'd expect Fulham and Brentford to score in that game, and my hope is that Ivan Toney is involved in that as well. I might make one signing this week, and it would be Ollie Watkins coming in for Darwin Nunez, but I'm also open to bringing in either Pervis Estupiñán or Ben Mee for the backline and bringing one of them in for Trippier/Tarkowski, and then having them for game week 27, then ultimately taking a -4 hit in that double game week. I'm going to show you my future plans as well very briefly coming up right now, but if not, it will be Ollie Watkins coming in for Darwin Nunez and going for that front three for the time being. Ultimately, I would want Harry Kane, but it might not be the time for me to get him in because it also would involve taking hits and getting rid of Salah when I also want to get other players as well. But then again, Salah to Matoma and then Darwin Nunez up to Kane is viable and definitely possible in game weeks 26 or 27, but I also have so many other avenues and players I want to cover in this double game week, and I think Andreas to Matoma would be my preferred move, and that's something I'm looking to do for double game week 27 as well. The last forward, we all know who's going to be Erling Haaland. I'm not even going to discuss him at this point. I would expect him to haul, even against Newcastle at home, who have been a bit off form, and Man City have been slightly more consistent in the last few weeks. A very commanding performance in the FA Cup as well. So this is a very solid 11 without using any chips right now, but still a few issues, especially in the backline. Let's go through my bench and captaincy before going to FPL.team and my future transfer plans. So I've got Ward, Robertson, Andreas and Botman. The only benching dilemma would be Robertson in for either Trippier or Tarkowski, but the rest speaks for itself, and I'm not going to dwell on that too much because the key thing is the captaincy and also my transfer plan. So I'm currently going for Saka as my captain. He's in form, been very consistent even when Arsenal have struggled. He's facing Bournemouth at home as well, and I would expect Arsenal to score 2 or 3 goals maybe, perhaps even more, and maybe keep a clean sheet as well. That would be the hope ultimately. But the other captaincy options for me would involve Rashford and Erling Haaland. And currently I've got the vice captaincy on Haaland and the armband on Bukayo Saka. Let me know your thoughts. But the one cheeky punt I am considering is Odegaard as the captain. He got a mega return like I discussed before against Bournemouth the last time they faced. And I could see him doing it once again, despite his shooting boots maybe not being fully out recently. And I still think Saka has been more consistent and convincing than Odegaard in recent weeks, and that's why I'm currently going for him. He seems like the biggest threat for Arsenal, as well as Martinelli right now, but Odegaard is definitely worth a shout and also consideration for the captaincy this week. So that is my 11, my bench, the captaincy, and a proposed transfer in Ollie Watkins. Remember, it could be a Estupiñán or Ben Mee coming in for someone like Tarkowski or maybe Robertson this week, but if not, it could be the wild card. That's also a possibility, although I'd say less likely as we go along. And the FA Cup results have actually swayed me more towards taking hits, maybe 1 or 2 over the next few weeks, and also tackling all these different game weeks in such a way without using the wild card. I think I can get away with using that chip later in the season. I'm still looking to possibly bench boost in 29. I'm going to show you that very briefly as well. And I can build a very solid bench boost team without using any chips as well beforehand. So let's go into FPL.team right now and show you my transfer plans for GameX 27 and beyond. A minor correction to something you saw earlier in this video. In terms of overall points, I've got 1,600, not 1,533. Otherwise, my rank would be significantly worse off. So everything you see on the left-hand side is updated according to livefpl.net and the official FPL website after all the games in Gameweek 25 have concluded. But using FPL.team, what I could do on top of the Watkins transfer in Gameweek 26 is bring in the likes of Ben Mee and Mitoma, and I think this would look very solid. I'd get rid of Robertson and Andres Pereira to fund those moves, and when I look at it, it also would make sense to bring in Estupiñán in Gameweek 26, or Ben Mee in 26, and then Estupiñán in 27, but then I would have to bench someone like Odegaard in Gameweek 27, which I'm open to. I think Fulham will be a tough test for Arsenal, and I'd be quite open to something like that, and I'd bring in another double Gameweek player, and I don't need to get Watkins just yet. I like his fixture against Crystal Palace in 26, but I would ultimately bench him in 27 anyway. So when I look at it, I also am open to other ideas, such as bringing in a defender this week instead of Ollie Watkins and saving that transfer for either Gameweek 28 or 29. So be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And in terms of the captaincy, I'd go for either Ivan Toney or Mitoma. But I'm also open to going for Rashford, who has a single game week against Southampton at home, but that could be enough to outscore any double game week player in Game Week 27. So I am open to that. And I've got a few other options as well, but really it's going to be one of those double game weekers or Marcus Rashford as my captain in Game Week 27. But we'll discuss this more as we approach Game Week 27, of course. Then going into Game Week 28, a blank game week, I would have a very solid foundation and I could have a full 11. The only thing I need to do is take out Salah for James Maddison and I have a full 11. And this is where bringing Ollie Watkins in could be very important as well, because he covers Game Week 28, and even if I bench him in 27, he's a good long-term transfer regardless, and he covers all these blanks and doubles very well. If I bring in Estupiñán, for example, in 26, yes, he doubles in 27 and 29, but he blanks in 28, and I would be getting rid of Robertson anyway, but I've got Ben Mee, who I'm going to bring in for blank Game Week 28 anyway, so it would mean getting rid of someone like Botman, Trippier, Tarkowski, or Ben White, and whilst I'm open to Tarkowski, because I don't expect much from him anyway, even in blank Game Week 28, I would rather have Tarkowski's 1 or 2 pointer in Game Week 28 and also start someone like Odegaard in 27 potentially, then bringing in Estupiñán, who I do like a lot. He's one of my favourite defenders for these double game weeks coming up, but it also might not make sense for my team unless I wildcard. So that's an interesting one, but I think Ollie Watkins would maybe be the safer pick to get in 26, then bring in Ben Mee and Mitoma for Game Week 27 and ultimately bench Mitoma alongside Haaland, Rashford and Danny Ward as well. In terms of the captaincy, this is obviously a bit further forward and things could definitely change, but Bukayo Saka could be the best of maybe a bad bunch, you could say, in this blank game week. It's not really that great in terms of the captaincy, but he might be the safest option, the most consistent, and also you would back Arsenal to get the result there against Crystal Palace. Of course, things could definitely change and football is a funny game. Then looking at double game week 29, I could bench boost with this team. And as you can see, it wouldn't require another hit. The only one I would take is in Game Week 27, bringing in a Brentford defender and Mitoma. But here, I only bring in Luke Shaw for Tarkowski, and I've got a very solid bench, a good starting 11, and some good captaincy options as well. I would favour Marcus Rashford with his double right now, and I've also got the likes of Mitoma, maybe Saka as a single game week option to consider, but I think I'd go for a double game weeker in either Mitoma or Rashford, and Rashford is definitely the standout. And that bench could easily score 15 points. For me, a bench boost, anything more than 15 points is a bonus, and this bench could definitely get that. Danny Ward has a double, so does Ben Mee, and you've got Odegaard and Ben White with a pretty favourable fixture at home to Leeds as well. So let me know your thoughts. This is without using a wild card, only a -4 hit, and the only downside is not having a Estupiñán, I would say, in Game Week 27 and potentially for Game Week 29, but this looks like a really solid foundation. I could dead end my team to Game Week 32 and then possibly wildcard out of this in Game Week 33 and then looking beyond to the rest of the season. I don't need a free hit. That could be safe for Game Week 37, another double game week, or another one beforehand. So I've got so much flexibility with these upcoming plans and my chip strategy. So I'm open-minded, of course, and I've got maybe certain preferences right now, but that could definitely change and sway to another direction as the weeks and months progress as well. But let me know your thoughts on all these plans up until Game Week 29. We also have to think about Game Week 30 and beyond, but of course, we can't overthink too much yet. We also have to tackle the weeks right in front of us starting with Gameweek 26. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 300 likes. Let's also push on towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and FPL League. All of that is there. And also be sure to sign up for Sorare, a new fantasy game, which is quite innovative as well. And if you like FPL or UCL fantasy, anything we cover on this channel, you're going to like Sorare as well, and you don't need to spend any money to get started. So thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate all your support, and I wish you all the best for Gameweek 26 up until the end of the season.